So when I was a kid, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I wanted to be a knight. And they said, well, you can't do that. You'll have to do something else. So I said, all right, I'll go into archaeology, because I always had a thing about the past. And then as I started to grow up, I found out that, well, there were guys at Brown University fighting in armor. And I said, I'm going to do that too. And so I started, like I said, at 16 years old. And what am I now? I'm a professional knight. That's what I do for a living. I teach fighters for a living. I travel to events to fight. I get to travel overseas and fight in world championships. I've got world championship gold medals fighting as a knight. So to my guidance counselor, you were wrong. You can be a knight when you grow up.
Where else can you hit someone in the head with an axe and not get arrested? It's great fun. Definitely not for everybody. But it's a sport that anyone can do at any age. I still fight. I'm 71 years old. I'm still out there in armor. We have kids in their early 20s. We have a ladies team. We have ladies teams. Although the women can choose to fight in the regular teams also, and a lot of them do. So part of it is an interest. I think we all grow up with an interest in knights and swords and axes, and here's an opportunity to actually wield them.
It's weird. It's kind of like, yeah, you are kind of chasing like a childlike dream. Like, I don't know if you ever saw A Knight's Tale, like come from nothing and become a knight. It's kind of like that. You have that feeling of like, you know, you also feel a little superhero-ish. You feel like Iron Man. You start suiting up, you're putting letters, zip, 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 strap, strap, strap. And you start walking around and you become a tank. You get onto the field and you're literally a tank versus other tanks.
If all you want to do is fight, you got mixed martial arts, right? And if all you want to do is fight with a sword, there's fencing. You know, and there's also boxing and Muay Thai and kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and judo and wrestling and if you want to hit people, there's football, you know, and rugby and all that kind of stuff. But here, you get to wear medieval armor, and it's not like you're just wearing a protective suit. The fact that for some people, it's like going back to their ancestors and seeing what it was like for them. For some people, they want to step into Game of Thrones or Knights of the Round Table or I've done some Shakespeare plays, and I'd love to know what it really felt like to be at Agincourt with Henry V, you know?
Some of us, most if not all of us, I think are geeks. You know, like we do love, like people who love Game of Thrones, who love Dungeons and Dragons or whatever those things are. I myself love medieval stuff. You know, people who love going to the Renaissance fairs and all that. It's just so much fun. I don't know, there's something in you that's gonna connect.
Well, I've always been the one that stuck up against bullies. I was always the one standing for what I felt was right. I think that carries over a lot into this. It comes with a lot of strength and a lot of power, and I think that's very important for young women today, that they can see somebody with that power to step up and stand up for what they believe in. So I believe a lot in the chivalry that goes with it, so I carry that outside of the fighting as well.
Early in around about 2010 or 11, folks in America found out that there was this thing in Europe called, there was a World Championships of Medieval Armored Combat happening in Europe. And these folks in America, they had done other medieval fighting games, but they weren't this particular kind. They didn't all use steel weapons. They didn't all involve punching and kicking and grappling as well as the sword fighting. And they weren't international world championships. So a bunch of folks who did these games and a few others got together and said, let's form a team. And they did. And when we got back, we learned what it takes to win in that sport. And so began the Armored Combat League and so on. One of those founders is Jay Brooks, and he's here today. You might want to talk to him a little later.
I've been fighting in armor since 1981. So I've been doing this since I was 16 years old. I'm 52 now. I love fighting in armor. Something about the Middle Ages and armored fighting and ancient fighting to ancient Rome, ancient Greece, the Middle Ages. Fighting in armor, fighting with swords, axes, maces, all of that has always intrigued me, and to test myself against other men doing the same thing has been what my life's kind of been about. I raised my family in it. I met my wife doing it. I've got my son fighting alongside me every day. Now I do this for a living. So why do this? I couldn't see living doing anything else.
It is now 10 minutes after 4. I'd like to have all fighters ready to go at 4:25, please.
Yeah, working on it. The steel fighting was being done at festivals in Europe, but it was kind of like the Wild West. There were some rules. Some of them were guidelines. They weren't really rules. And when we started the Armored Combat League and the IMCF, the International Medieval Combat Federation, it was decided that we wanted a real rule set so we could have real competitive sport. So that this wasn't historical reenactment, this wasn't LARPing, this was going to be a full contact modern sport done the way our ancestors did it, or as close to what our ancestors did as possible.
This is a modern take on the medieval tournament. We do it all on foot, but the armor and the weapons are all documentable to the Middle Ages. It is full contact, so we are striking one another with full force with the weapons. And there are two types of combat that we use. Today you'll see is the melee. This is team combat, and the purpose and objective is to get everyone on the other team knocked down onto the ground. It's 3-on-3. A chapter is your local group. Here in New York, we have two chapters because we're so big. The New York Sentinels, who are fighting today, and the Long Island Harlequins. We have the Manchester Monarchs down from New England. They're a New England group down there, and they happen to be the national melee champions in the ACL, Armored Combat League.
Stop fight, right?
I see 2 on 3. I see 2 on 3.
What are you doing?
There you go. Well, the New England teams are made up of guys and girls who train at the Knights Hall, and that's basically the original school for this sport of the Armored Combat League, and so they tend to do very well. Jay, their captain, Jay Brooks, well, I don't know if he's serving as the captain of the team, but he was one of the first to do this, and he's done very well in other similar games, and he has an axe and he knows how to use it.
And sometimes it's the helmet that crushes you.
Ready, fight!
As I'm sure you heard, we have 3 versus 3, 5 versus 5, 10 versus 10, 15 versus 15. This is a little bit of the smaller versions of that, it's made so that all the chapters around the area have a better chance of fighting. And it's kind of like a good way for us to practice against one school to another until we get to like the regional conference events, where then they start pooling the best of the fighters from every chapter into regional teams. For example, our first swords team, which I'm also a part of, these chapter matches kind of help us determine fighters' abilities, who's kind of getting seeded a little bit. It's a good way to like review different people and see how they fight, how well they mesh well together as a team. And then we have regional commanders that pick and choose fighters from these chapters to create bigger teams to go internationally, to fight like other regional teams and things like that.
There you go, make a miss, make a miss. You're swinging one, swing two. Never just throw one. Go low on him, go low. Swing more than he does. Keep swinging, keep swinging. There you go. You're getting close, you're swinging.
As a woman, I am showing them how to do it. These guys, oh my goodness, we must love them. And they're so cute. They think they're really strong and muscular and buff and able to take on the world. They're right. But us women are rising up too. We're gonna get equal with them. Tonight I fought men for the first time. It was wicked awesome. I love it.
There you go. That was a good bite.
15 seconds.
Go low on him, go low!
Keep going.
Good, good.
I definitely recommend this to other females. I feel very empowered that I'm here, so I definitely would recommend it for just a survival. Like I feel like stronger and like how I can take on anybody now because I have this skill in my back pocket. Yeah, come on ladies, bring it on.
Back out and get your breath. Get your breath before you come back in. Now throw, throw, throw. There you go.
Do it again. Do it again.
Keep throwing, keep throwing. Keep throwing.
Get in there. Get in there.
Good, good, good. He's gas. There you go. Look how fired he is. There you go.
Push him. Push him.
He's got it. Push him.
Part of it is the camaraderie that we have here. Everyone is friends with everyone else, even people, not just your own team, but the opposing team. We out there, we're trying to hurt one another, we're trying to put them on the ground, although we don't want to injure one another. And then afterwards, we go out and have pizza or steak or whatever, a couple of beers, and talk about the match.
Really strong brotherhood into this. Even in your team, outside your team, everyone's really trying to help you out and make the sport kind of grow. So yeah, there's a childlike aspect to it. It's hanging out with your friends, you know. It's kind of like roughhousing, and you know, because like we're just a bunch of roughhousers too. We all kind of find some kind of beauty with violence a little bit, you know. But honestly, some of these guys, they're not like, you know, your jarheads or like, you know, you're crazy like, I want to fight you all the time. And no, we're a bunch of good guys that just kind of have a passion for fighting therapeutic. That's how it is. We find fighting therapeutic in a way, and it is if you do it the right way.
You've also got these great guys and girls and that sense of camaraderie. Now, you can get that sense of camaraderie in everything, in any combat sport, in any team sport. For some of us, it's the greatest thing we'll ever do in our lives, and we all did it together.
It's a brotherhood. It's a place where people can come together. They can be family. There are guys on this other team, guys that I fought against. I love them. They're awesome. They're friends of mine. I was beating them out of them today. You know, and later we may go out and have a beer.
So to see it from an outsider point of view, it seems very macho and intense, but in reality, it's very much like a big family, and we get along incredibly well.
We're just trying to live the lives that we fantasized about as children, and we're able to do that. It's real, it's live here in the United States, it's live here around the world, and if you're interested in doing this, just come join us. We have people of all walks of life doing it, and we'd love to have you.